What if you got fed up about how vampires were being portrayed in popular culture and they had been stripped of all their menace and fear? What if you were a comic book writer and teamed up with what many consider to be the greatest horror writer in the world to paint vampires back in the light that they should have been all along and were conceived? I am talking about American Vampire by Scott Snyder, Rafael Albuquerque and the one and only Stephen King. Okay, so here they are, the 8 volumes that have been published so far on the American Vampire series by Scott Snyder, Stephen King and Rafael Albuquerque. Scott Snyder, big comics writer, American, very famous for his run on the Batman issues of the New 52, and Rafael Albuquerque, Brazilian artist, and Stephen King, who actually wrote the script for the first 5 issues only. So basically the premise of American Vampire is I don't want to say a reinterpretation, but it almost feels like after the really crappy run of vampires that we had with with the Vampire Diaries and True Blood and the Twilight saga. I mean, not really vampires, and these guys decided to go back and make vampires scary again. That's the premise. So what we have here is the story of an American vampire by the name of that's it, Skinner Sweet. Okay, and the story starts in the Far West in the 1800s and it moves through time, through the 20s, the 40s, the 60s, etc., etc., tracing part of American history and part of the evolution of vampires. And here what we have is Skinner Sweet, an American vampire who is immune to daylight, and who goes around wreaking havoc. He's a sort of fairly anarchic character, and one of the vampires that he creates, an actress in Hollywood in the 20s called Pearl, and the different adventures that they move on. So there's an overriding arc here, and it's the story is good. It is compelling. It reminded me a little bit of the movie Forrest Gump, saving the distances between what Forrest Gump was about and what American Vampire is, but in the sense that they reflect different facets and aspects of American history through the different volumes. So we move through time, through the Far West to Hollywood in the 1920s, the beginnings of the film industry. We go through the changes in American culture in the 50s, and then we go through post-war and the space race in book 8 or volume 8. So in that regard, the story, it is quite interesting. Rafael Albuquerque, the art, it's really good, but I found, I don't know if it's the printing or if it's the artwork itself. It seems kind of in some pages the artwork seems faded or fuzzy or not that clear, and I don't know if that's intentional or maybe not very good printing. I found that hard to believe, because Vertigo, I mean, Vertigo stopped running now. It used to be DC's branch of more adult-oriented comics. Really good quality. I mean, I've got a whole shelf there of Vertigo stuff. Anything that Vertigo published, I would buy because they were great comics. So I would very much doubt that they didn't pay attention to the printing quality and the process. But yeah, I think at times I felt a bit let down by the quality of the of the printing, not the artwork itself, which totally fits the story. The vampires are ugly, they are bloodthirsty, they feel scary. Okay, and I am back with an epilogue, an addenda, a coda, an intermission, whatever you want to call it, because I forgot to mention something. Basically, like with many comic series, at one point, because of deadlines, because the artist may fall behind schedule, you get guest artists involved in the project that usually are brought in to draw a single issue, and typically the writer will write a one-off story that kind of gets slotted in the middle of the action, and that gets drawn by the guest artist to give the main artist the chance to catch up and work to the established deadlines. So with American Vampire, basically we get that from volume 3, where Sean Murphy, who's also done other work for Vertigo, was involved in the project. Dustin, I don't know how to pronounce it, Dustin Gwen, please help me out with the comments here, in volume 5. Matthias Vergara and Dave McCaig in volume 7, and Dave McCaig again in volume 8. I'll get it out. But more interestingly for me, volume 4 counts Jordi Bernat, a Spanish artist, as one of the guest artists. Now Jordi Bernat was he made it big in Spain in the very early 80s in a series called Torpedo, which follows the misadventures and adventures of an Italian-American gangster in the 1930s, which was published eventually in English by IDW about 30 years after the series finished in Spain. And Jordi Bernat, apart from the work on Torpedo, he also did some cover work for another Vertigo series, Sculpt by Jason Aaron, and he also did some cover work here in American Vampire, and it was quite sweet in volume 4 here. It was totally unknown to me, but apparently Rafael Albuquerque was a big fan of Jordi Bernat, and there is a picture at the back of the volume here of Rafael meeting Jordi, and it's kind of quite nice to see how even established artists like Rafael Albuquerque have also got their idols and the people that they followed and grew up with, and they got a chance to work together here. Having the different guest artists wasn't a problem at all with American Vampire. There's a very consistent tone in the artwork. It's all very similar, and it doesn't detract at all from the story, which is not something I can say about all the series I've got on my shelf there and that I've read, where I got distracted or I felt a little bit let down by the lack of consistent tone. Here, no problem at all. And yeah, that is what I wanted to say about the art and the special guests, and now I'll slot back into the main video. Thank you. And I had the fortune, very lucky, to meet Rafael at a comic book convention. He signed volume 1 for me there, and I strongly regret not asking him for a sketch of the main character, Skinner Sweet. But Really lovely guy, so shout out Rafael if you ever get to see this. I asked him about what was it like working with Stephen King, and his scripts and so on, and Rafael mentioned that he found it a little bit tricky to get from the scripts what Stephen King was trying to bring across, possibly because obviously massively accomplished writer but brand new to the genre. Probably I think in one of the intros of the books Stephen King mentions that he had to go and reread his son's Joe Hill's Lock and Key series to get a feel for what writing for comics would be like, which is interesting. Such an established author, so late in his career, moving to a different medium. So, bit of teething problems there, but then the series from issue 5 onwards entirely written by Scott Snyder, great horror writer. He's done other things like I've got it there, Witches, the ongoing Witches series. So good quality writing, interesting stories. The interesting time changes as we move through history, keep the story fresh and new, and doesn't feel stagnant at all. My only concern now, I suppose, is that with the Vertigo label folding after so many successes, after so many years, the series seems to have stopped. Now, DC has come out and said that all the titles that were being published under the Vertigo label will continue. So I'm looking forward to the series continuing. Maybe it will come out under the new black label by DC, or maybe they will still be printed under the Vertigo label. I'm not so sure. But for anyone interested in vampires, this is a really good story. Vampires, as they should be, bloody, gory, ugly, vampire hunters, international chases, vampires thrust into very different situations, not just your classical horrid castle or catacombs, but out in the daylight, different vampires coming from different strands are weak or can be killed through different means. So depending on the nationality or where they come from, it's not just a stake through the heart that will kill them, but they are weak to different elements and different materials, which is why our American vampire is immune to daylight, and what can actually kill him is gold. It's not a stake, a wooden stake through the heart. So it's sort of fleshing out and adding a little bit of lore to a massively covered and written about subject like vampires. So definitely interesting, definitely worth giving it a go. I would really recommend Snyder's and Albuquerque's run on American Vampire. And yeah, subscribe, leave me your comments, let me know what you think, and until then, take care and see you next time. Bye.